And welcome back to the Flow Sports Fix on this Wednesday night. And I'm joined by the Flow Man and the Stat Man once again. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Now, you may have heard over the weekend about the comments by Cameron Bancroft. It looks like Sandpaper Gate is kind of coming back into the news cycle. And he's made the comment that it wasn't just the three. It wasn't just himself and Steve Smith and Dave Warner that were involved in this, that everyone knew. The bowlers knew. Everyone knew what was going on. So is this enough for Cricket Australia, who have stated that they will reopen the investigation into what happened upon hearing new evidence? Is this enough, Statman?
No, quite simply. I'm not a lawyer, but they want to have some more evidence. But, I mean, come on. I mean, how naive are people actually out there thinking that the bowlers, the greatest beneficiaries of what was going to happen to that ball with that sandpaper,
they would have
didn't know what was going on. I mean, this is not new evidence, really. I mean, surely we were all aware that this was probably likely. I've got no evidence to say 100% for sure, but I can't imagine for one second that in the world of professional cricket that a player could take some sandpaper out onto the field to use on the ball that international bowlers who bowl for a living are going to then use to go and fire at South African batsmen. I can't justify in my own brain how that could be the case.
Agree totally. I played one season of low-level cricket at the Gladesville C-grade competition.
Here we go.
And without going into my illustrious performances, gentlemen, where I did actually average 20 with the bat. But I've got to say, when I picked up the ball in the field, you knew when that ball had hit a concourse, or you knew when it had hit a fence on a sharp object because you looked at it and there was a mark on it. And I think for all those that play cricket regularly know that when the ball gets scuffed up by the ball being thrown in onto a concrete wicket area and it gets worn, you can see it. You watch the players immediately go to try and get that piece of rough edge that's been roughed up on it, get that back to some sort of a shiny position. So I think the reality is that if you're a bowler taking that ball in hand from Cameron Bancroft, who throws it across to you, the bowler, after he's put a bit of sandpaper on it, you don't think for a minute there wasn't a little bit of sand left on the edge of the ball, that there may not have been a little bit of scuffed up area that wasn't there the previous ball, and you know that the batsman just blocked that to the field, and you as a bowler know that ball has been scuffed by something more than it was the previous ball. You watch it very, very closely. So in this context, you're exactly right, Jason, the bowlers would have known. But the more important thing is, why did Bancroft bother to say this? The time he served has been served. And then we look at Steve Smith and David Warner. They've served their time. I'm going to make a statement here. I believe that when Faf du Plessis got 2 weeks or 2 games banned for the same incident of actually scuffing up a ball, and Faf was, of course, the South African cricket captain, 2 games, a penalty for doing something virtually the same, then we look at the Australian penalties of 12 months for the two senior players, 9 months for Cameron Bancroft. I'd say that those penalties that our players had in the world context of cricket were way over the top compared with anybody else. I mean, the great Sachin Tendulkar actually once did tamper with the ball. I mean, he didn't at the time. It was earlier in his career. There's been numerous occasions.
Shahid Afridi put the thing in his mouth like it was an apple and bit it. I'll never forget that. That was the most bizarre piece of ball tampering I've ever seen. He was like he was eating an apple. It was crazy stuff. Look, here's the problem I have with all of this. I don't know why Bancroft has gone to the press right now. Yeah. Maybe he's upset with his penalty. Maybe he just wants to clear the air. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me because he's still playing first-class cricket, and at some point he's going to line up against Mitchell Starc and Josh Hazlewood, who are probably going to try and take his head off. I'm not going to be overly impressed if I'm them too, and having heard that. But look, the simple reality is anyone who has ever wanted to claim the moral high ground against Australia for what went on over Sandpaper Gate is flat out kidding themselves. We've had South African captains done for match fixing before and banned for life. India, Mohammad Azharuddin, remember him? Yeah. One of the greatest cricketers of all time? Well, nobody speaks about him anymore because he was a cheat. Now, the only way that this all gets fixed is if there are set rules in place from a governing body who has the sport under control. The problem is the ICC has never had the sport under control. It is beholden to BCCI and will be until it mans up, for want of a better way of putting it, and actually stands on its own 2 feet and comes to the determination that India does not rule the game worldwide. It needs to actually be the governing body for the sport in all parts of the world. That means no more ACB handing down its own penalties to your players. You can do that if you like, but we're going to have an internationally sanctioned penalty for such ridiculously stupid acts like that. And if you want to add to it, that's your business. But the ICC penalty will be this. And we need to have uniform rules in around this so that everybody around the world knows what the expectations are, what the rules are, and if you break those rules, this is what the penalties will be.
Yeah, the only issue still, though, is you get a tribunal at football, say, where we think that the elbow to the head is worth this amount of games or a sling tackle is worth this amount of games, and the degrees and the changes, the interchanges, the amount of concussion that the player on the other side got, all of these become deliberable, changeable things by those that are actually overseeing the decision. So I'm not sure you're ever going to get that, Jace, where they'll say it's a too much penalty for Shahid Afridi biting the ball.
There is certainly a number of things that can happen with the ball that you could legislate penalties for tomorrow if you wanted to.
I want to go back to Cameron Bancroft and why I think he is saying this, and that is that sometimes it's hard to move on from when something you've done bad has happened, and sometimes there's a bit of a sour taste left in your mouth. I mean, it might be the Shahid Afridi biting the ball sour taste left in the mouth, but there might be a bit of sandpaper still going around in his pocket. He's still a bit grated about the whole thing. And I just wonder whether or not his ACB contract, the fact that there's 4 to 5 other players that have now gone well in front of Cameron, I don't think he looks like he'll get back into the Australian side unless he has an absolute blinder at his age too. Let's really put it bluntly, it's going to be really hard for him to get reselected back into the Australian side. So maybe this is the last hurrah, the hit out, the throw you made under the bus situation, which in effect is what he would have done to the fast bowlers and Nathan Lyon for that matter in this situation. So I reckon there's got to be some sour grapes somewhere along the line to actually even come out and say anything. But at the same time, I don't think he's saying anything that we didn't actually think.
Correct. And I'm also thinking about, well, he didn't mention any coaches, but you sort of wonder if that's the next step, if he's going to start naming names of other people. And I think,
let's be honest. If the bowlers knew and David Warner knew, come on, of course Darren Lehman must have known. I mean, I don't know that for sure. I can't throw accusations out there because I don't have any proof. But how naive are we? Come on.
Yeah. I mean, the cameras picked it up, so someone else must have picked it up as well long before then.
And I think the South Africans and the commentary team actually were aware something was happening and actually had a role in the cameras focusing on Bancroft if you go back over the original history of this. So a lot more to it.
There certainly is. All right, that's where we'll leave that discussion. Cameron Bancroft, if you need some help, mate, you can get it through Lifeline. 13 11 14 is the number, or you can come and have a chat to us. We'll certainly get you on the path of the straight. We certainly know how to do that. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in. More conversations we'll be having. If you'd like to get in touch with us, Flow FM on Facebook is where you can find us. Look for the handle, Flow FM Australia, or send us an email through to news@flowfm.com.au.